So this is the Italian tubular cast on. I've measured out my tail. I'll do that in a different, that's in a different video, measuring out your yarn and figuring out how long of a tail for a long tail cast on. So this is functionally a long tail cast on here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go under my first yarn right here, then over the top of my back yarn. And if you can see there, it looks like there's a knit stitch. Now for the purl stitch, I come around under both yarns and then bring my needle back through the middle of both of the yarns. And now it's not a locked purl stitch, but it's a purl stitch. So now I'm going to do that again. Under the first yarn, over the top, and back up. That's a knit. Underneath, back through the middle, and there's our next purl stitch. So it's just this pattern going back and forth. You don't count the first stitch as one of you don't count this first kind of overloop as one of your stitches. So far we have 4 stitches cast on. So I'm going to keep going under the first, over the second, back under to form a knit, under both, over the first, under the second. It's second meaning far one, first meaning the one closest to you. So I'll do that again with that terminology. Under the one closest to you, over the top of the one farther away, under the closest. Under both, from the back, under both, over the first, over the one closest to you, under the one farthest away. And you can see you can get into quite a nice little rhythm going on here. So I'm going to keep casting this on in that way, going under my first stitch. I'm under the yarn going over the thumb, over the yarn coming over my finger, and up. Under both of my yarns, over the one over my thumb, under the one over my finger. So that's a lot of different ways to explain it for whatever works for your brain. And now I'm just going to keep casting on until I have the number of stitches that the pattern calls for. And I'll be back when that's done. Alright, so here's our last stitch. I've double checked to make sure and counted. So here's our last purl stitch. We're coming around the back, up and here. Now that purl stitch really wouldn't be that tight. It's kind of loose. So what I'm going to do is just put a backward loop. So I'm going to take this and I'm basically going to just cast on a stitch. I'm going to take this yarn, twist it, twist my tail yarn, twist it, and put it over my needle. Now I'm going to turn my work. So there are a couple of setup rows involved in the Italian tubular cast on. So this first one, as I look at it, it's going to be, I just did a knit purl on the other side. So now I'm going to do knit purl on this side. So I'm going to knit. Then I'm going to bring my yarn to the front and I'm going to slip this purl stitch. Put it to the back, knit, bring my yarn to the front, slip that purl stitch. Go to the back, knit, bring my yarn to the front, slip that purl stitch. So if I was doing English, I would knit, bring my yarn to the front, slip, knit, bring my yarn to the front, slip. So I am a continental knitter. Now we're not putting, this isn't a brioche, so we're not putting in any extra yarn overs here. We're just slipping with the yarn in front. So knit, slip with yarn in front, knit, slip with yarn in front, knit, slip with yarn in front. Now I'm just going to keep doing this until I've done all 96 stitches, or till I'm at the very end, and I'll show you what we do at the very end. Okay, so one of the things that will sort of happen is your stitches might get a little twisted on your needle. So what you just need to do is make sure as you're working them that they look kind of like the knit stitches and the purl stitches. And if they don't, move your stitches around until it does. So if I was coming here and this didn't look quite right like that, see how that doesn't really look right at all? I'd twist it around until I get what looks like a knit stitch. And I really only need to worry about my stitches that are right coming up, and I can twist them as they come. I can fix them as they come. So again, knit, slip, knit, slip. Make sure these are all lined up. Looks like they are. We'll check again as we come to them. Knit, slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, knit. Now this last one, it looks like there's two stitches here, but there's not. That was just the loop we used when we were starting. This one is just the loop we used when we were starting. This is actually our purl stitch. So what I'm going to do is on this one, instead of slipping it, I'm going to purl these two together. So I'm going to get my needle in both of those stitches there, and then I'm going to purl those two together like that. Okay, now we're going to turn around, and we only worked half of these stitches because we knit and then we slipped. So we need to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so as I'm double checking my counting to make sure, I have found that I have one stitch that didn't get held in front but has ended up becoming a yarn over. So I want to make sure that as I come to that one, my yarn goes back down in front. So what I'm going to do, this kind of stuff happens as you're working on it. Okay, so I have this yarn over. So what I'm going to do is put a stitch marker right ahead of that so that I will make sure that I know that I need to fix that, and I'll show you how I'm going to fix it when I get there. Stuff like that happens in knitting all the time. Doesn't mean you have to take the whole cast on off. You can easily fix that. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. All right, so I have the right number. And I've got this one yarn over here that I need to fix when I get to it. Now we only worked half the stitches going this way, so we're going to need to do the same thing. I'm going to start with the knit stitch. So I'm going to knit, bring the yarn in front, slip, knit, bring the yarn in front, slip, knit, bring the yarn in front, slip, and again English way, knit, bring the yarn forward, slip, knit, bring the yarn forward, slip, move the yarn to the back, knit. Okay, so I will talk to you when I get to that progress keeper over there, that marker. All right, so here we are. I've got this slip stitch. Now I've got this yarn over here. I'm going to take my stitch marker off. Now this was just supposed to be a yarn in front. So what I'm going to do is just take this yarn over, lift it off the needle, and it just rests in front. And I don't need to worry about it at all. That's all I needed to do. So I'm going to knit, slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, knit, and purl. Because that's our end one. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to join in the round. Now if you were going to go ahead and have a flat piece, you could go ahead and just use this as it is. And you could just start doing your ribbing. And you can see right here that you've got your ribbing going. Whoops, here we go. And you can see right here that you've got your knit stitches and your purl stitches, and it disappears into this lovely invisible edge that just is ribbing. Looks like the ribbing just continues all the way across. So now we're going to join it in the round. Okay, so we finished that with the purl. Now we're ready to join in the round. Now I'm using a needle that is much longer than my 96 stitches, so I'm going to just pick a spot and divide. So I've divided. I'm going to pull out enough yarn so that I can get my twist there, so my stitches aren't being pulled apart. So I've got my little cross, I've got my stitches here, I've got my stitches here, and I'm ready to just start with joining in the round and doing one by one ribbing. So I would okay, so I had made sure all my stitches were straight. We'll double check and make sure they're straight again. And they are. Good. And we're ready to join in the round. So I would knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one. So this particular pattern calls for a different kind of ribbing. My choices are to just immediately do a knit one, purl one for one round, or I can immediately start the patterning for this ribbing, which is slip one with yarn in front, purl one. Now I'm going to want to tighten that up. And yes, it made it a little longer here. So the Italian tubular cast on made it a little longer, so I'm going to use this tail to weave in my ends as I need to. So, because I had that, because the Italian tubular gave me that extra length, I'm going to go ahead and start with my pattern stitches like it says in my pattern. And then I'm just going to work the ribbing as the pattern says and just keep going for as long as the pattern says. Then I'm going to keep doing this particular ribbing. I call it the fence pattern. So I'm going to keep doing the fence pattern until it's time for my stitch pattern. This is the Italian tubular cast on. You can either do it flat and then keep working, or you can join it in the round as I've showed you, and you don't have to do this special fence pattern. That's for this particular black raspberry cowl. You can just do 1 by 1 ribbing. I hope you found value in this tutorial. If you have, please consider a one-time payment via PayPal or a regular subscription via Patreon. The links are down below and they are on the screen. Again, thank you for joining me. See you next time.